Hey guys, Yulei here. So yesterday I posted a video showing you some of my projects that I was working on this past season, and it seemed to be very popular with you guys, so I decided to make another one today. So I'm going to show you some more of my projects, but I think I'm going to concentrate more on the plants and planting schemes rather than hardscaping or installation. Now, before we start, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a background on how I work with my clients. So there are a number of ways we can install a garden. So the option number one is that I can propose a master plan to the homeowners and they can find a contractor, or I can find a contractor for them, and we can install a garden either in one shot or maybe phase it out if it's too daunting to do it at one time. And then another option is that I can create a master plan for the homeowners to install the garden themselves. So I call those projects DIY projects, and the homeowners who decide to go that route are some of my favorite people because a lot of times they're huge gardeners just like me. So I totally understand their passion, and under my guidance and sort of a supervision, they can go ahead and divide the projects into small chunks and get their garden installed. So the first project that I will be talking about today is one of those DIY projects, and we have been working on this property for a while because we decided to start with the small chunks of projects, so like a vegetable garden, install a shed, install a hedge, fix up the lawn, and it all takes time. And obviously if a one person or a couple are doing it instead of a contractor and a team of 12 people, of course it takes longer. So I will post like an overall plan of this property. It's a lawn and narrow property, but I decided to include this lawn that is a feature of its own, and they have small kids, and a lot of times when I have families with small kids, I decide to make one big lawn because I know the children are going to play ball at some point and they need space to run. And all of the areas around the lawn are either seating areas, vegetable garden, or planting beds. So in this summer period, we actually decided to work on one of the beds, and the plant selection for this bed, I could not be happier with the plant selection. It was just so much fun. And before I go into the specific plants, I just want to mention that they have black walnut on their property. And if you're not familiar with black walnut, they actually produce a toxin that is called juglone that kills a lot of plants that can be planted under them. But there is a list, it's rather short, of plants that can survive under black walnut. So our selection was kind of limited, but you know, I tried to do the best I can to accommodate the area under the tree. So here I have the plant selection that I pulled out in the nursery, and this is like one of my most favorite times when I go out to the nursery and I pull out plants and I select different textures and colors, and it's just so much fun to play with that, and also keeping in mind what the property looks like and also what kind of condition that we're talking about, because we want everybody to be happy. We want the client to be happy, we want the plants to be happy, we want the trees on the property to be happy. So there's a lot of demands to be met. Oops, here goes my microphone, sorry. So anyway, I will actually post all of the lists of the plants either for this project or actually for the previous video as well. I already posted the list, and it's big of all of the plants included in the project. So as you can see here, I have some winter berries, some hydrangeas. One of my favorite plants for this project was Cephalotaxus. And Cephalotaxus, I'm not sure why they're not that common. I really love the structure of this plant. It's evergreen. It goes kind of upright and narrow, so it's a space-saving evergreen. The problem with them, they're kind of slow growing and hard to find. Maybe that's why I don't see them that often. But also, one of my favorite plant combinations was the wee white hydrangea and ninebark. Oh my gosh, that contrast of that blush color with the maroon or darker foliage of ninebark is just so striking. I love it. I also included some natives like Echinacea, some native asters. Ninebark is native, obviously. And there was a really shady area on the property, and we planted Brunner, Hakonechloa, and Pulmonaria. And I gotta tell you guys, you don't have to sacrifice color if you have a shady area, because all those plants have beautiful foliage, and Brunera and Pulmonaria both bloom in the spring with these most adorable blue flowers. But overall, I just loved this project. I loved the plant selection. It was so much fun to kind of select all these plants and put them together. They were so vibrant, and I can't wait to see this garden mature. I think it's going to be so lush. So the second project that I'm going to show you today is just an amazing property. So I have worked with this client before on her old house, and once she moved into this new home and new property, she reached out to me, and this is a double lot, which is very unusual in our area. So also the previous owners were huge gardeners, and their garden looked amazing about like 10 years or 20 years ago. But once they started to get older, the gardens became dilapidated. So once my client moved into this home, the gardens were overridden by weeds and a lot of perennials were gone. So we were trying to restore the gardens to their previous glory. So I was working both in the front of the garden and also the backyard. And the first order of business was to get rid of the weeds. And the weeds were tough. So there was mostly mugwort and thistle. And here's the thing, this client is like 100% organic. She wanted no chemicals on her property, so all of the weeds had to be hand pulled, which is completely fine. But if you decide to hand pull your weeds, tough like mugwort or dandelions or thistle, it has to be done over and over and over again to make sure like every little rhizome and every little root is gone. So that was a long process because we were waiting for any weeds to pop up again and remove them again, and then pop up again, remove them again. So once that was gone, the weeds were gone, and it is essential before you install any perennial garden, because if you leave some of those weeds, they will spread like a wildfire in between your new perennials. So once the weeds were gone, we installed a drip irrigation both in the front and in the back. And the planting plan for the front, it did include a lot of natives, even though my clients, in this particular case, it was not her focus. I always try to push natives. So I included lots of Joe Pye weed and hibiscus mosquitoes and Amsonia and penstemon. So the penstemon that you see in the middle here is Dark Towers, and I absolutely love that plant. It just, the color pops, and it actually makes all the other perennials look so good. And there were some peonies, and I think we included some dahlias and annuals just to fill in the space while the perennials are filling in. And then in the back, there was actually a pond. The previous owners had a pond, and the decision was made to fill in the pond, which I completely agree with, because ponds are wonderful if you have patience and dedication for them, or you're willing to pay somebody to maintain them. If you don't do that, ponds a lot of times turn into swamps, which is not pretty. So we filled in the pond, and this kind of a naturally circular area was formed with gravel. And I proposed that we put 4 boxwood hedges, obelisk in the middle, and some clematises and some lavender growing around the obelisk. So that was kind of like its own feature. I really loved that. And then all of the perennial gardens around it, again, we removed the weeds, installed the irrigation, and I included tons of like this meadowy looking plants. This is a very sunny area because they lost a lot of shade trees in a recent storm. So the area was like, it's a baking sun all day long. So I included some Verbena bonariensis and more penstemon, gara, and geraniums, some lavender. And if you see, there's a gazebo in the background, which is just an absolutely amazing architectural element on the property. And I pulled all of those colors of that gazebo and I included them in the perennial garden as well. So also the perennials were quite small when we installed them, and that creates a lot of pockets, empty pockets where weeds again can come in and start growing. So we actually filled those pockets with dahlias and some annuals for the summer. And that's a great way to kind of manage perennial gardens while they're still maturing, because you do not want to overplant them so the plants don't suffocate each other, but at the same time you don't want that vacant space where the weeds can thrive. But I really love this project. I think this project is kind of like a long term, and I will be coming back and looking at all of the perennials. You know, maybe we have to troubleshoot, because that happens. We'll lose some things. I would say 10% is an acceptable loss rate in my experience. But overall, can't wait to see this garden in the spring and the summer, and I will be giving you updates on these projects. Anyway, I hope you guys like these videos. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. I would love to stay in touch with you. And if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you next time.